Hi everyone, my presentation is on Act 82, and the focus of that is kind of how did Pennsylvania's current teacher evaluation systems come to be. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about what Act 82 is. So Act 82 is a state level policy. It was a response to federal level changes that we're talking about how did the teacher evaluation system change. The big thing is that it mandated that the teacher evaluation tools in Pennsylvania judge teachers based on 50% classroom observation and 50% student performance. So this is a big change. Part of this, there weren't federal or national level mandates of what our evaluations had to look like. But before we get deeper into Act 82, I want to look at kind of how we got here. How did this problem develop? So identifying the problem, it requires taking a step back to the federal level. In 1983, A Nation at Risk was published. This was a study that told that our nation's schools were falling behind other countries' education systems. It was kind of the first warning sign that educational decisions were moving away from the state level, where they've been for pretty much all of the history of our country, and the national level was stepping in for the first time to make changes that were actually going to impact the way we do instruction in the classroom. Thinking about the different values that are a part here, quality and equity are probably the two that I think play the biggest part here. Obviously, we want our education system to be of a higher quality. That's why we're moving to the federal level mandate so that we can compete with other countries, but also looking for equity. We have 50 states that have 50 different kind of isolated education systems, looking that we have the means to make sure that everyone in those states is getting a similar quality of education. So quality and equity are the two that are standing out as we're moving towards identifying this problem. So then the solution comes. We're going to look at it at both the federal and the state level. Two federal policies came out, the 2001 No Child Left Behind and 2009 Race to the Top. Both of these saw teacher evaluation something that could kind of be standardized across the entire nation, and saw standardized test scores as a big part of the standardization. So No Child Left Behind started that process, and then Race to the Top added money to it. In Race to the Top, added funds that encourage states to meet certain mandates. One of those mandates was requiring student growth be based on statewide assessments, and is kind of how we got that student testing part attached to the standardized tests that are happening. So now we see the state level response, and looking specifically at the policy I'm dealing with, Act 82. This is kind of how it came to be on the state level after those federal mandates came down. In May of 2010, the governor and the state secretary of education in Pennsylvania submitted an application to receive those Race to the Top funds. In December of 2011, Pennsylvania received the funds, which committed them to adhering to those mandates. And then in June 2012, Act 82 was passed. So we got to Act 82 by all that federal level stuff coming down, all the state level stuff coming down, and finally Act 82 coming through and saying all the changes that we're actually going to make in our education system. So that's the policy that went on behind the scenes to get us to this updated teacher evaluation policy. So the last piece we're going to look at is how it actually impacted teachers. So first, we're going to look at an example of how did the local level respond to that state and federal. And essentially at the local level, they had to figure out how to best instruct their teachers on implementing all the things that came through with Act 82. So I'm going to look at the Erie School District as an example. When they passed Act 82 in 2013, they created an educator effectiveness committee, and their goal was to make sure that their school district was following all the mandates of Act 82. That committee gave several presentations. Their biggest one was in November about what all the specific parts of Act 82 were. Then they held monthly meetings throughout the entire year of 2013 to make sure that teachers were rolling it out the way that they intended. And then they created an educator effectiveness handbook, which is something that also exists on the state level, and updated that each school year. So you can see there's a lot of work that goes into making it work on the local level. And when we look at the actual things that came into place, it'll make a little more sense. So Act 82's impact on teachers all across Pennsylvania kind of looked like this. The teacher evaluation was now required to include student test data. This is the first time that there was a mandate linking this test data to evaluation. So that's what a big part of what determines if teachers get rehired, how much teachers get paid. So there's a big impact on teachers. They want to make sure that they're including this properly. So 50% classroom observation, and they said 50% student performance based on multiple measures. So not just student test data. There's two other factors, building level measures and teacher-specific student learning objective. SLO. So both of those make up 30% of that 50, but then 20% of it is student performance on standardized tests. And then the other thing that the state level did to help this implementation is they created a teacher effectiveness manual. And this is just an example of state level support in implementing observation and evaluation process, which again, is a little bit new and something that's coming along with Act 82. So that's kind of what happened as a result of Act 82. Obviously, this is a couple years in the past, so I'm just going to show you some of the things that have come as a result, some of the changes that have started to happen directly after Act 82. So kind of after Act 82, any new policy that comes in, they look at it, they evaluate it, they see what's going to come next. So in 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act was passed at the national level, and that's continuing to look at how does Race to the Top, how does No Child Left Behind work, but that's going to make a lot of changes at the state level. So Act 82 linked those test data to evaluations, and Every Student Succeeds Act decided that that wasn't working. So they said that they're going to move away from using student test data as a teacher evaluation data point. So that got rid of that 20%. So now it's 70% classroom observation, and then 30% that student performance is now the school performance profile in the state of Pennsylvania, and also the SLO. So we've taken out the test data, but we still have two measures that are in there. So this is continuing to be looked at, to be analyzed if it's the best way to go as a result of Act 82. And then again, we have the same thing with Act 82 with the Every Student Succeeds Act. Pennsylvania created a transition manual that's state level support that's going to help the transition at the local level. So that's kind of an overview of everything that came as a result of Act 82 and how we got to where we are. So the references, if you need to look into any of those, have a lot of that, the manuals that the state created, and also how those committees acted and implemented those processes.